Lately I've been hearing a lot of stories about crashes, motorbike crashes, people that I know, people that I know of in my wider community, on the news as well. There's been a lot, and on YouTube, when you click on something on YouTube, it starts recommending you the same thing. So there was a lot of stories that I was watching also on YouTube about people who've had serious permanent disabilities. And what I noticed about a lot of these stories is that there was always something wrong that the person was doing, like either something either illegal, reckless, either speeding, also inexperience and overconfidence. There was one, like I was filling up my bike at the service station and I saw a 636, one that very almost the same as the one that I had, same color, the green. And so I went over and I talked to the guy, and he started telling me about his 18-year-old son who just got into a crash like several months ago, and he got a fractured pelvis, and he couldn't walk for a while, and then he was telling me how his son was in a police chase. He was being chased by police, but it wasn't until the chase was over, he said, the chase was over, was finished, and his son was just sort of riding after that, and that's when he crashed, and that's when he got that injury. And then the strange thing is like recently I heard another very similar story, but it was on the news, maybe 6 months apart, these stories. And again, it was someone who had a police chase on a bike. After the police chase was over, that he didn't get caught, the person crashed. So I don't know, maybe this is just a coincidence, or maybe it's because you've still got the adrenaline going, and I know you get uncoordinated when you have adrenaline, or maybe this is proof that karma's real. But the thing I notice is a lot of people point out, for example on YouTube, someone's telling the story about the crash, and then there's something that's wrong. There's something that the person was doing wrong, and there's always those people that point out, see, it's because you were doing something wrong. You were either inexperienced, you weren't skilled enough, you were being reckless, or whatever it is, and these people point out and say that was the cause. See, if you didn't do that, that wouldn't have happened. So there's two camps of people though. There is the people who say, yeah, see, that happened because you were doing something wrong. But then there's the other side, is about what about the people who didn't do anything wrong? Because there are a lot of people who go into crashes and really bad things happening to them, but it wasn't their fault at all. They were doing nothing wrong. One example is, this was several years ago, there was this big ride, I think it was a police organized ride from Melbourne to Sydney, thousands of motorbike riders, and one man had crashed and had lost his life on that ride. And what had happened is that there was a driver who was taking meth, and he was speeding, and he was driving on the wrong side of the road, and he hit this motorbike rider during this ride. So that motorbike rider was, I think he was a police officer or retired police officer, but he was doing nothing wrong. It was no fault of his own. There was another one very recently where someone was doing a motorcycle safety awareness ride, and sadly and ironically, the irony is that he was hit by a car, and he lost his life as well. And the car, the ute driver, was actually charged as well. So obviously, when you listen to the stories, you've got to listen for that. The person was charged, or if the person was not charged. Sometimes you see something on the news, there was this big fight, this person looks like he's doing something wrong, but then was let go by police without charges, which means the police investigated, and they realized, even despite what the news is saying, the person didn't actually do anything wrong. But in this case, the guy who was going on this ride the driver was charged for perhaps being negligent, showing that it was not the rider's fault at all. So it's wrong to say that only bad things happen when people do wrong things on a motorbike, but it's also wrong to say that it doesn't make a difference because bad things happen anyway. Because if you have 10 people who have been seriously injured or even died in a crash, 8 of them were probably doing something wrong and only the 2 weren't. So 8 of those crashes, serious injuries or death wouldn't have happened if that person wasn't doing something wrong. Like, when I first started riding, I wanted to know, I heard this statistic, 36 times more likely to be killed in a crash compared to a car, right? And I wanted to know, and I investigated, and there was this really good study done in Australia by the Road Transport, and it was showing that, like, the way I interpreted it, around 90% of the people involved, there was a factor like either speeding or alcohol, which I think made up about 50 or 60% of all the crashes. Like, 50-60% of all the crashes, speeding or alcohol was a factor by the rider. Other factors were like no license, no helmet, and another strange one, but it happens a lot, is unfamiliar bike. So be cautious and don't let anyone ride your bike, and be cautious when you're on an unfamiliar bike. I made videos about this, talked about why in some other videos. But these things, all of these things together, made around 90% of the crashes. So essentially, if you aren't doing any of these things, that statistic doesn't apply to you. Other things it doesn't include were like, lack of skill. Maybe someone panicked and locked up the back brake or something, which is a lack of skill because you should know how to use the front brake. I remember when I first started riding, I was approaching a roundabout and I suddenly saw a car and I panicked and I locked up the back brake and I felt the ABS kick in, which is a very beginner thing to do. You need to learn to use the front brake. So I'm not saying that, there's a saying, it's not the bike, it's not the motorbike, it's the rider. I'm not saying that that's 100% true. I'm not saying it's 100% that it's the rider, but there's a lot of evidence that suggests that it's at least 90% the rider. One of the causes, the reasons of people crash that I've seen, and it's not that obvious when you think about it, but it actually is the root cause of a lot of people's crashes. And in Australia there is a campaign like advertising safety which is named Ride to Live. Now you can dismiss that as like a catchy phrase, but when you think about it, there's a very deep and subtle meaning to that. There's a lot of people who have been hurt and killed simply because these people didn't ride to live. It's a simple mentality. You ride to live. Like, instinctively, humans know what's dangerous, right? But somewhere down the line, that instinct gets blurred. I don't know. Maybe it's ego. Maybe it's testosterone. Maybe it's sin. My channel is a Bible-based channel. If you're not familiar with my channel, I talk about bikes and Bible verses, and also in this video we're going to have a Bible verse at the end. But I think instincts get blurred, and there's a lot of people who don't ride to live, and a lot of times I see that. I mean, there's a lot of people who have a safe mentality and maybe lack of skill or something, but a big proportion is people who just do not have that mentality of riding to live. They do things recklessly, they don't care. They think nothing is going to happen to them. And if we go back to this statistic of 28 to 36 times more likely to die if you ride a motorbike than if you're in a car, that's general, but it's actually skewed. So what it really is a person who has a rational fear and caution is probably down at the 8 times more. They're not up at the 28 to 36. And if they have skill as well, probably even less. But then there's other people who are reckless, speed, excessive speeding, even a little bit of speed, like 30 kilometers over the limit can cause crashes. And these people, they're not 28 to 36 times more likely to crash. They are 100 or 200 times more likely on their ride, if they ride like that, to crash. See, that's a thing that the statistic doesn't show. That's why there are some people who don't last very long on a motorbike. There's some people maybe 1,000 times more likely. Some people who don't have any caution and don't have any skill, and they want to borrow your bike. If a couple of them happen, then it's likely that person's not going to come back. That's the chances. And so it's very skewed to recklessness, to skill, lack of skill. And this number of like the good riders, 1 to 4 or 8, is getting mixed with the 200, 300 times more likely, 1,000 times. They're all mixed together, and on average we get this 28 to 36 times more likely. So I just want to end here with a Bible verse. That is Proverbs chapter 1 verse 7. It says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction." I guess not just I'm a testament that sin, doing things that are wrong in the eyes of God, people say it blinds you, but I think that it's worse than that. I think it dilutes all of your senses, not just your vision, your hearing, your listening, your understanding. And I can be a testament of someone who delved in sin in my foolish years, woke up to myself, woke up to the danger, woke up to the poison of it, and followed Christ, who led me. Not only did I choose Christ and by that receive forgiveness and salvation, but also he leads. There are a lot of people who claim that they're Christians, but they're not really following, they're not really being led. So anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about. So I hope this video is helpful for you to understand the risks and to be a safer rider. Don't forget, if you like this video, please hit the like button. If you like my content in general, please subscribe. And if you want to donate to my channel, you can with the super thanks. That's the thanks button on the icon under this video. Take it easy and ride safe.